Hey y'all.
Hey.
Thank you.
Hey.
Hello.
So this is our social justice advocacy, and the goal of this podcast video is to just bring awareness to racism within the Hispanic and Black communities. We'll start off with introductions. I am Tiana, and I am a school counseling major, currently at Augusta University in the grad program.
Okay. Well,
Next.
I guess I'll go. My name is Jose. I am a also in the clinical mental health counseling program here at Augusta University. In the future, I hope to work with Latinx and LGBTQ clients, and I hope to do some advocacy work in those areas because I know that there's more representation needed in that, and I want to show up for my community. We're here.
Okay.
Period.
And I am Derrick York. I'm on the clinical track for counseling. I go to Augusta University. I specifically want to work with kids, specifically Black children with adverse childhood experiences, because I want to, work with them and help them heal and help them cope with any adverse situation that they go through.
Awesome. Hannah.
My name is Hannah Lewis. I am also in the clinical mental health counseling program at Augusta University. Eventually, I would love to work with people of color, low income individuals. My interest in this career started because I had a hard time finding counselors who looked like me. And so I want to kind of be the change in the field that I wish to see.
That's great. That's great. Hello, my name is Justin Robinson. Also CMAC at Augusta University. And my goal is to work in the Veterans Affairs or closely tied with service members. Being a veteran myself, I think is important for soldiers or airmen or just service members in general of color to see somebody that they can relate to in the mental health space.
Awesome. Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your support.
Um, so I just want to jump into the history, and we're all aware of the history within the Black community and the Hispanic community, but I want to hear about you guys' experience with being in school, like elementary, middle, and high school, and what was your experiences like with just learning the history of your people and what you learned later on in adulthood? Like, were there discrepancies? Was it the same? And things like that. So I'll start with Derrick.
Okay. Well, so for me, elementary school, again, we talked about the basics like Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, same thing in middle school, same thing in high school. It didn't really change. And literally,
Yeah.
it was only on Black History Month when we talked about it. When we talked about American history, we talked about slavery. We didn't really go specifically into chattel slavery, which is an effect, which currently affects us like today,
Hmm.
new age, new modern slavery. Um, and a lot of times I was the only Black kid in the class. So, a lot of times they would look at me, all the white students, they would look at me when we were talking about slavery and all the atrocities of slavery. And a lot of times we didn't even really go into the details of a lot of different traumas that are associated with chattel slavery, like uh, lynchings, but we didn't go into detail about like the amount of lynchings, the pictures of the white people being happy about the lynchings, their kids being there, um, them actually selling tickets for lynchings. That wasn't talked about. I didn't learn that until my adult years, basically. But yeah, there's so much trauma associated with chattel slavery that's not talked about. So yeah.
I appreciate that. And I think I had a similar experience, not like being looked at because I'm mixed,
Mhm.
and just receiving the bare minimum. And it's like you really have to do your own research as an adult to find the truth. I feel like it was watered down. It was made to seem like, oh, it wasn't a big deal. And then, like, I don't know, like it just like it just was nothing. Like, oh, this happened, but we're all good now. Like we're all together and we can mix and mingle and like so it's fine. Like, and it's not. But yeah.
Yeah.
Jose, I'm interested to see what you have to say.
Yeah, I had like some of the same experience where whenever I really only remember that we talked about Cesar Chavez, which he in himself is a problematic figure because his organization was working against undocumented people. They perpetuated a lot of this harmful stereotypes of illegal people taking our jobs and all these different things. And a lot of people don't know that because it's painted in such a positive light. But I had the same experience where we talked about him and I got all the stares. And I guess comparing it to what I learned now in my adult life, I remember questioning, even as a kid, like, okay, like I'm learning about the civil rights era. I'm learning about segregation. I'm not really hearing anything about Hispanic people in it. It's mainly just centered around the dichotomy of black and white. And of course, like they use terms like colors, so you could assume where, brown-skinned Hispanic people went, but it's not always that a Mexican or, Brazilian even person is a brown skin. So learning about things as an adult, I had learned about how whenever they were doing the Fugitive Slave Act and stuff, some enslaved people went to Mexico because Mexico's government told the US, like, hey, we're not giving them to y'all because y'all are terrible. And I had also learned about how I think it was in the Great Depression, same thing with that stereotype of all these people taking our jobs. People of Hispanic descent were forcefully deported because of that stereotype where people were like, oh, well, it must be them taking our jobs. Like, let's get them out the country, so more white people, more American people can have jobs. So it was just a bit eye-opening to see just how much racism America has like towards every minority. You typically hear about like, Asian populations and the railroads and the Japanese internment camps. And it just always shocked me a bit to never hear as much about Hispanic populations and kind of just hearing like, oh, like the Spaniards were for them less than America. But no, it was America too.
Yeah. Um, JRob.
Uh, yeah. I guess I'll be pretty similar to Derrick. Learning about things, especially in my childhood, it was, of course, only during Black History Month, and when in history class, we're talking about slavery, and yeah, any Black student in there, they're looking at you, or whatever the case may be. Um, and then again, me being a military brat, uh, growing up, so being in Alaska and being in Colorado on these military bases is very diverse. Um, but both of my parents are from the South, and we would go back to my dad's hometown and my mom's hometown, and you're seeing the the segregation, you're seeing the racism, you're witnessing it, you're experiencing these things, and even visiting, my family and talking with my family, it was very important for them to talk about prominent Black figures in a light that I didn't hear in school or from teachers and things of that nature. So you know, and I think that's something that's still important to my family now is we have to educate ourselves because they're going to tell you what they want you to know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Or
Definitely
water
true.
it down. Or water it down and
Yeah,
make it like it was minute. It was something like really um not impactful, not
yeah,
traumatic. Like, oh, it's over now. No, it's definitely not. No.
It
Like
still exists, or we
like for
wouldn't be
instance,
here right now.
right. Like for instance, like the
that's
police
true.
departments that we currently are experiencing police brutality with, they were once slave catchers during chattel slavery. That's where the police came from. So I mean, that's just one aspect of chattel slavery being in our present day time. So, yeah.
And I think that's never talked about, like how policing started, but it
Mhm.
makes so much more sense of how people in the Black community, like they view a person of color going to be a police. It's like very frowned upon. And
Yeah.
like
Very
thinking
true.
about it now, it's like that's probably where that comes from because they know where policing started from. And for you to, they may have assumed that you know this history and you still are choosing to join this group. It's just like,
Is they could have good intentions, like they could be trying to better the community. A lot of people, you feel me, like if they're Black and they want to be police officers, they want to police the community in a positive way. A lot of times,
Mm.
sometimes you have, people who have internalized racism who do the complete opposite. But then you have some people, who care about the community. But even though since you're under that system, you still are a part of it. So that's the only
Yeah,
downside.
you're a participant,
Yeah.
and then
yes,
knowing our communities are overly policed.
Mm-hmm.
yes,
You know,
by people who do not look like us.
Mm-hmm.
And I said that because it must be hard to choose a field where you have good intentions and you want to be the change that is needed
Yeah.
and not have the support of your loved ones or your family because they're looking and saying like things that I've heard is like, oh, you're a pig for like
mm,
joining the police and things like
Oh,
that. And so it's like I just I don't know, like it would be hard for me to choose a career that like my family or like my loved ones are wholeheartedly against. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because you're gonna go through things like with the police academy and stuff like that. So it'd be nice to have some support, like be able to
they want
call
that
someone and
check.
talk.
Yeah.
And I get that, but
They want that job security. They want that retirement.
And that's a
yeah,
whole
of
different type
course.
of like back in the
Mhm.
blue. Like they have their own code. Like so again, they go.
Hmm.
But when you're Black, you're not really in that code. You're not because they
that
still
is
get
true.
to in the force. I mean, so just saying. Yeah.
Right. Anna, what was your experience like with learning about the history?
Um, I would say that similar to what Derrick said, I was really, I didn't realize it at the time, but as I got older and I became more interested in activism and, I wanted to educate myself, I started to recognize how watered down things were and how whitewashed they were. Something that really stands out to me is the way that growing up and going through K through 12 education, how we talk about civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. versus the way we talk about Malcolm X, and how one of those figures has been whitewashed and they are palatable to white folks, but the other one, because, you know, they went about it in a different way, they were more aggressively pro-Black, um, that threatened people. And so the way that we are taught about Malcolm X, he is so demonized
Yeah.
within our history books in a way that, it really took me getting older and having to research this stuff on my own for me to recognize that. Another thing that stands out to me is the way that so often the history books portray these really revolutionary, well organized acts as just like happenstance or chance. So, like Rosa Parks sitting on the bus, that wasn't just like a choice. She didn't just get on the bus and decide, I guess I'll sit here. Like, that was part of an organized demonstration, and on top of
Mhm.
that, she wasn't the only person to be doing this. There were other people who did it before her and after her. So,
Very true.
it's convenient to talk about like, oh, this person was just strong, but no, these people, in order to get what you want, in order to propel us forward and towards something, that the type of world that we want to see, we have to be organized, we have to be persistent, we have to be strong, we have
Yeah.
to be so many different things. And it's more than just one day I woke up and I decided I didn't want to move.
Mm.
It is a constant choice that we have to make, as people, us as future counselors, um, And another thing that I really think about throughout my education is that I really didn't have any Black teachers. And I feel like that also impacted the type of education I got, because I had a lot of teachers who were afraid to say the wrong thing, you know, which we've encountered throughout this class. They don't speak on certain topics because it's challenging and they haven't been prepared to. And, you know, while I have empathy for that, I also recognize that, like, for me, being in this class that we're in, having a Black professor for one of the first times in my life, like, this has been life changing for me. And it makes me realize how important representation is in educational spaces and how much further we have to go. But, you know, I'm excited that we're all a part of that change. So, yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, most definitely. I love that. Especially with like the things that people of color have to do to be seen and be heard, has to be planned and strategized and
Right.
well thought out. That was a word right there. So transitioning, I want to talk about like personal experiences with racism and or like, well, yeah, like your personal experiences and like just, you know, if you've been just a witness to it or like you've been the person being discriminated against. Me personally, I don't think I've had it where like I've been discriminated against. There's always like looks and stares if like I'm with a group of white people. They're wondering like, what's the story here? Are they related? Like, am I the adopted one or things like that? But like, it's just weird looks. Like, I'm too dark for a white group, and then I'm too light for a Black group. So that was just like the only really interesting thing. And I never really understood why, really generally until this course, y'all, I'm not gonna lie. This course has allowed me to sit with things and explore things. And now I feel like I do it with everything. Like, let me sit with this. Let me explore that a little bit more. I'm gonna get back to you, like for real. Shout out Dr. Coakley. But yeah, let's go, Jose.
I really resonated with what you said about being to this for this group and to that for that group. Uh, being, especially when I was a kid, being like of a fairer skin tone and still, you know, being told both of my parents are Mexican, like from the country. And having those experiences in school where I would go with the Mexican groups and or the Latino groups and they would be like, Jose, you're not Mexican. Like, look at you, white boy. And I would think in my head, like, my name is Jose. And then I
Right.
would go right, and I would go to the white people, and they would clock that T, and they were like, Jose, you're Jose. You're not white, mama. So it was just really aggravating to deal. I like it goes, of course, it goes more into colorism, but I'll get to that in a bit. Um, where I began to understand through those experiences that the color of my skin afforded me certain privileges, whether it be through how I'm perceived or how, you know, even teachers would treat me because of the whole like, oh, he's not as dark, maybe he's less threatening, that whole sort of sickness. Um, and even having those experiences now in college and university where people seem to think because I don't fit this stereotype of what a typical Mexican man looks like, of how they act like because I'm LGBT, oh, he's less threatening. Like I can key with him a bit easier. Um, so it afforded me a lot of like duality in my perspectives, where I was able to see on one hand like the ostracization, I was never quite enough, never quite this, never quite that. And in that same hand, within my own community, I was afforded these privileges and in my own networking experiences and education, I had these unique benefits where I didn't have to work as hard to maintain an image as some of my other Hispanic counterparts. And in some moments, I held a lot of resentment because I felt as though having these privileges alienated me a bit from my own community. And that was disheartening in itself because it was just a thing where that one idea of not being quite enough kept growing. And it wasn't until I got older that I felt a lot more comfortable in my own culture, in my own experiences, because despite what these groups are saying, I always practiced Day of the Dead. My mom made Mexican food every single day. I would go to quinces, I would go to bailes, I would do all these things um, that helped me feel more aligned with who I am culturally. And it wasn't until I started to lean more into that that I felt more security in who I was as an ethnic person, as a cultural person. Because before that, it was always this game of like, okay, but where do I fit in? Where can I go? And it was never a game of that. It was just like, okay, I'm gonna be me, and what's meant for me will find me.
Mm.
Love that. Love that. Hannah.
Well, being biracial, I had a similar experience to you, T. Wasn't black enough for black folks, wasn't white enough for white folks. Growing up in America, like one half of my family is here in this country, and the other half of my family, um, primarily lives in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which is this small island chain in the West Indies. And so, like, I've been disconnected from that culture and those people in my family for my entire life, with very few interactions with these folks. And so, the people in my life, the family in my life who would have kind of taught me what it means to be black, I didn't have that. And so it's been rough going to kind of figure out where I fit in as well. And I think for the longest time, I think that a lot of black folks, regardless of, how what type of household they grow up in, they grow up hearing messages that to be black is to be lesser than. Maybe not within the household, but you definitely hear it outside the household. You can't escape it. And so that has also been true for me. And, because I grew up closer to my white family, socialized within um, an American household, and with my American mother playing a huge role in that, my white American mother. Um, that has really influenced, I guess, some of the privilege that I have, because I know that, similar to what Jose described, like the way that I talk, the way that I present myself is seen as significantly less threatening because it's more in alignment with white American values. And I think it took me a really long time of recognizing that um, I get to decide who I am and what I lean into and what culture I adopt for myself. I don't have to just kind of live in this world where, because I have been disconnected from this culture, I don't have any connection to it throughout my lifespan. So I think being mindful about trying to reconnect with that culture has been important for me as well. Um, Connecting through food, connecting through music, um, and learning how to do that unapologetically, and accepting that not everybody is going to get me. But I think also, similar to what you said, T, I I recognize that I've been very privileged because I haven't experienced nearly as much discrimination as I could have because of colorism, because I'm lighter skinned, because of texturism, the texture of my hair, um, because of the way that I talk. There's so many different aspects that have influenced that for me. So yeah, I've experienced some, especially, within the white side of my family. I definitely have experienced some discrimination, but um, yeah, I definitely recognize it could be worse.
I think that's real, and that's just you. But I think that's the I think that's the beauty in everything, especially with this class, is being able to like identify that and realize that that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just your story. And
Right.
we hear you. We hear you,
Yep,
Hannah
like
girl.
owning our positionality, like Dr. Coakley always says.
Yes.
Yeah.
JRob,
Yes, ma'am.
you remember the question?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
my experience is whew, shoot. I've fit the description so many times in so many different places. You know, from grocery stores to shopping malls to everything. You know, I've been followed, patted down, like there's it's just so much. I've been pulled over walking. I'm walking to the store and I'm getting pulled over like, oh yeah, we got a call and you fit the description.
What description?
A black guy. You're black.
A dark-skinned black man. A dark-skinned black man.
Hey, I'm telling you. So yeah, it's been a lifetime of that. You know, like I said, just getting pulled over for whatever reasons. You know, I've been pulled over for your tail light is out when it really wasn't. Um, I've actually been pulled over once. This was a few years ago, actually. And the police was like, "Hey, man, you know, what do you do for a living?" Yeah, well, this was back when I was teaching. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a teacher." He was like, "Oh, driving this kind of car? Hmm. I don't I don't know if you could afford this as a teacher." I'm like, officer, I can't, obviously. But again, you know, I fit that description a lot of the times, and especially in the South. You know, I've spent all of my adult life in the South, so and that's kind of uh, been the majority of my experience. Well, even in high school, uh, there's an instance where I got pulled into the office. You know, the principal, he was like, "Hey, man, you know, tell me what's going on, because you're a good kid, and you know, we got video of you." And I'm like, "Video of what?" Like, y'all put me out of class. Y'all have video of me in class? He's like, "Oh no, we got video of you selling drugs." And I'm like, "What?
What do you
Show me the
mean?
video." And they showed me this video, and I look, you know, my principal's a white man. I look at my principal and I say, "Sir, ain't no way you thought that was me. Just another black kid." Another black kid. They was like, "Oh no, this is you." It's not.
How
Sorry.
you gonna tell me that's me?
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry. But like
That
I
is
say, another
crazy.
case of, you know, that you fit the bill. And that's what happens a lot of the times. And that's been a lot of my experiences. Uh so yeah. I don't think it's ever normal. Uh but I think a part of me is like, oh, okay, here we go again. So
Yeah, I hear that. I think it's unfortunate, and I'm wondering if I wonder if it has already, because I know from what you, JRob, and Derrick have disclosed previously with your experiences, um, does it ever like does it ever feel like normal, like all this again type of thing? Like, are you able to
I would say that I'm desensitized towards it to an extent because I feel like it's gonna happen. I anticipate it a lot of times when I
yeah,
do the police and when I don't, when it doesn't happen because of the PTSD. I really do think I have PTSD associated with the police because I've been pulled over. I've had, you know, guns pulled out on me.
mm,
Um, like been called boy. That shit blows me because that's a macroaggression associated with, you know, trying to dehumanize me in a sense and make me a child, like, you know, sense, and make me feel less than.
Yes.
I've had a swastika in the 3rd grade. I had a swastika put on my desk in crayon, so that was new for me. I didn't even know what it was at the time. Then my parents had to tell me what it was and what it's a hate symbol and what it's associated with and why people use it. And I was like, oh, huh. But I already knew that racism was there because I was called a nigger like in the 1st grade. So again, like my experience of racism is at a young age, and then it just kept on going and going. So at some point, I just started just like, it's nothing now. What else can they say? What else? What's new? Monkey, gorilla, all those terms, like the ooh ah ah, no, all that shit. It's just, yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. Well, like, you know, going more into it. I mean, I don't know. I just not only desensitized. I guess it's just normalized in our society because, again, you know, it just keeps happening. And then when we try to find ways to advocate for it, it continuously happens. So then you feel like you're losing hope in that moment. And it's like you feel like you're giving up because it's like, dang, this keeps on happening. This keeps on happening, repetitive, back to back to back to back. So what's the point of advocating at some point? Like that's sometimes you feel like that. Sometimes you have those moments. But then you know that, you know, it's not just about you, it's about everybody. So
yeah,
you take yourself out of it and then you put it as a community, as a collective, and then yeah.
And I feel like also generations to come, like, and I think that's really like the focus of like advocacy is this isn't even just about me anymore because I'm already knee deep in, you know, oppression and racism, and I've had my experiences and I'm probably going to continue to have them, but I want to do what I can do so that my grandkids, their kids and then their kids don't have to see this type of world. And that's like a scary thing. And I feel like in the community of people of color, just in general, it's scary to bring a child into this world because there's so many different talks that you have to have. And then in a white community, there's no talking that has to be done. You can walk where you want to walk. You can go in any neighborhood. You can knock on any door. You can drive any car. Like you can do anything you want to do. We do not have to forewarn you about anything. And
examples of that, like not being able to wear your hoodie in the store. Like my moms would tell me, don't wear your hoodie in the store.
Show your hands.
Your hands are not in your pocket. Don't touch anything if you're not buying it. All that, like that's it's a lot.
I was at the mall today.
You don't want anybody to think you're a thug. You don't want anybody to think that you're a gangster, some shit like that.
Yeah,
like,
pull your pants up and don't sag, stuff like that.
Yeah,
I was at the mall today, walking around some of the shops, and I had items in my hand, and the whole time I was checking to make sure that the cashier or the store clerks weren't watching me or thinking I was stealing something because I know I've been followed in a store before. And I think also to speak to what Derrick and T said, this idea that it's not just about us, it's about generations to come, something that always gives me strength and helps me continue even when I feel so just exhausted and hopeless, is thinking about how my ancestors fought for me to be here. They fought for dreams that they never got to realize. And
they don't even know it's happening. Like, you know, that's the beauty. Like they put in work.
They did.
Not even knowing if it was going to make a change or be the different.
But I think the other aspect of it is like kid wise, like teaching our kids to recognize racism, to recognize different forms of racism. That's important too, because there's situations. I think I saw a story about a Black woman. She was in a group of white friends at a sleepover, and they ended up killing her at that sleepover because, you know, obviously it was covert racism that she was experiencing because it wasn't right in her face, obviously, because she probably would have recognized it if it was overt, but it was probably covert. And it was probably little micro aggressions that were said to her. She didn't recognize it. So I feel like that should also be something that should be taught to kids because, for instance, what if you go into a sundown town? What if you don't even know what a sundown town is? And you end up in a situation where there's white people talking to you and you think they're being friendly, but they're really being macro aggressive to you, and you could be in danger in that moment. So certain things like and being able to recognize, those micro or macro aggressions would be important for the safety of your children too, and just children in general, like future generations.
Yeah.
And kids coming
For
up.
the sake of people who don't know, could you share what a sundown town is?
So a sundown town is a town that you don't want to be in. And past nighttime, really. You don't want to be there at nighttime. You want to be there before the sun, you want to be out of there before the sun goes down. And in that time, a lot of times there's like little things like Trump, because Trump's associated with racism, American flags, Proud Boys,
Confederate flags.
Don't those little "Don't tread on me" stickers on the back of trucks. Little gas stations that don't say whites only. They don't say blacks. They don't. It doesn't say any of that. It doesn't say blacks not allowed. It doesn't say white people only. It really will just be like a small gas station. Barely doesn't look like it's working. You're in a sundown town sometimes, based off of little landmarks and little artifacts that you see in the town, and you'll know. But if you can't recognize that, you're just going through the town and you stop and you try to pull up. Hey, can I get? No, you don't want to do that. You want to keep.
Yeah,
And
it's
I think
interesting.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to share something real quick. When I was in Greensboro, North Carolina, I went to this one museum. It was actually the site of one of those. It was like the famous sit-ins at one of these department stores in Greensboro. And they had in the exhibit a map of certain states that Black folks could buy back in the day that actually identified different sundown towns throughout.
It's called the Green Book. That's what it's called.
Yes, thank you.
No, that's really cool. I was gonna say like I feel like it's a fine line you have to walk as a parent to want to make sure that your kid is prepared, but also you don't want to kind of take away their innocence of just being a kid and not having to worry about because to me, what we're discussing is like adult problems and adult, like, you know what I mean? Like it's hard for adults to grasp and retain this information that could possibly save your life. And yet we have to prepare a child as early as 5 years old or whenever they're starting school and experiencing other kids to be aware of this. It's
unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but it's necessary. I mean, because if nobody else does it, if we don't do it, then you have somebody else trying to teach your kids, and they could be teaching them what's it called, harmful things like indoctrination, and then now you have to unindoctrinate your kid. Now you have to unlearn certain things that were taught to you. So that's important. So,
and that's what I was gonna say too.
Yeah, I agree. Where it almost seems too like the discussions being had at such a young age are incredibly unbalanced, where white people are not, well, typically white people don't have these sorts of conversations on being anti-racist or how to be an advocate from a young age. If anything, they typically try, especially speaking from my experience in rural towns, I remember having conversations or overhearing conversations where some white kids in my grade would talk about how their parents kind of tell them to ignore race or like look at their character. Right. And like it's just not a balanced conversation because as much as we try to have these conversations that center around safety or like what things to watch out for, we also have to keep in mind how they're all incredibly like they're through a lens of fear. It's through a lens of like, of course, self-preservation, but it's all grounded in this fear of like needing to do X so I can survive Y. And it's it would be interesting to see a world where anybody starts having these conversations with their kids. Like history has no age. It's just a matter of finding the words that are appropriate and digestible for the child. And the same goes for like, love is love and all these different things. It's not a matter of like, oh, they're a kid. They shouldn't be learning about racism and lynchings and like, yeah, they shouldn't learn about lynchings, but they should learn about how some people might think that just because one person is darker than another, they'll treat them a bit differently. And I think a child can understand that.
Yeah.
It's just interesting because you also like we're all agreeing with this, of course. And I would like to believe that the people listening to this podcast, they might agree with it as well, but then you look at some of the legislation and some of the talks that are happening politically and how they're just not wanting to go through with critical race theory because they hear race and they hear critical and automatic defense mechanism, automatic feelings of defensiveness, guilt, all these different things where it's like, okay, we're all adults here, assuming. Let's talk about it. We have the words. We have the capacity, we have the desire. None of us here, I would like to believe, are malicious at our core. We all want to see a better world. Let's talk about what that better world looks like. Let's talk about what we can do to get us closer to there.
And also in this political climate as well, I mean, they're trying to get rid of like things like the Underground Railroad, like talks of it, and on the national, I think it's on the museum. I forgot what it is, the Smith something. It's
Mhm.
somewhere where they were talking about the Underground Railroad, and they were watering it down and not putting Harriet Tubman in the Underground Railroad and what she has done. So they like basically like watered it down and made it a less descriptive, uh, minimal part of history, basically.
Right. Well, they recognize that knowledge is power, and so they're trying to reduce the amount of knowledge that we have so that we don't know what we've faced in the past. We don't recognize the resources and tools that previous activists and people who have risen up have used to combat that.
Yep.
Because if we're aware, we are equipped with what we need to build a better future at the expense of the people currently in control. I also feel like there's this massive like anti-intellectualism movement that is happening where this idea that, well, why do we need some person with a college degree to tell us? And I recognize that knowledge needs to be made more accessible. Higher education needs to be made more accessible. These are things that are certainly true. And at the same time, education is important. We need people with various types of expertise to come together to create solutions that actually make change. And in order to do that, we have to be informed. We have to be educated. That doesn't mean that you have to be educated to make a difference. But some of us have to be. And to demonize education as if that's the problem simply because it's inaccessible. Okay, let's talk about accessibility. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Period.
And I think that also goes into like what you said, Jose. They hear race, they hear critical, but they also hear theory and they think, okay, some hoity-toity person with 3 college degrees came up with this. Like, I can't understand it. And I know, T, you've talked before about how it's so important to put things in a way that everybody can access it. I hope that us as counselors, that we can be a part of that movement, that we can make knowledge more accessible through psychoeducation. So, yeah, but it's tough. I don't know. It's tough to make people recognize how important it is to be educated, to care, to understand history when they're so resistant to it.
Hannah, what you're describing is what a large majority of a certain political party would describe as woke. They've weaponized certain terms that
Yeah.
that
The woke mind
used to mean
virus.
something totally
Right.
different. Yeah, and they weaponize it and change these terms for fear mongering, and now everything is woke. Well, oh, you're so woke,
But
and
if we
woke
call
is
them
is a code
snowflakes,
word.
right,
Right.
right,
And
Yeah.
what are they? Sleep.
right, right. Sheeple. Yeah.
So but yeah, what you're describing is like I said, a lot of people would say, oh yeah, that's woke. I don't want any wokeness. Woke. I don't need wokeness in my life. Like,
Yeah.
How are you
okay.
supposed to navigate the world if you're asleep? Where is the enlightenment at? Let's talk about that.
Holy. Okay, so we're going to do a little ad, which is providing a resource. This resource specifically is for Black women, and the platform is Therapy for Black Girls. It was created by Dr. Joy Harden Bradford. I believe I'm saying that correct. Pretty much, this is a resource where you can go online, pick if you want in person or virtual therapy, and you can search for a therapist who you feel like you can connect with. They have all the resources like the insurance that they accept and the specialties that they have, like, if it's trauma, grief, things like that. So, that is a resource that we wanted to share with anyone who is listening or watching right now. And to continue, we'll go into self-care activities for counselors. And I want to tie that into what we plan for the coping skills and mechanisms while dealing and exploring and sitting with these experiences and feelings that have come up due to the racism that you've lived through. Um, so, Derrick, we'll start with you.
So I think some things that I have done to cope with some of the racism I've experienced is poetry. Uh, I used to write I used to write a lot of poetry, and I used to like express myself through that. And so I would maybe make like a poem associated with the imagery of what I experienced. Maybe not because I didn't really want to talk about the full experience, but I wanted to talk about maybe um, the area where I was in, and I may have not have been as expressive in the sense of like being called the N word, being called a nigger, being all that being said a gorilla, but it was helpful to write these poems because I'm expressing and making my own reality in a sense a better, what's the word? Like a better experience that I didn't
Yeah.
have in that moment, but it was, writing poetry, through writing some of the experiences that I've had. It is definitely a good like release, a cathartic release. I would say it's a really good release. I think journaling too would be something as well that would be helpful. To journal your experience and then maybe rip it up or tear it or put it in a bottle. Some things like that. I think would help. Like that would be something that could help somebody experiencing racism. That's what I did. So I feel like that could also be used in implemented, with a counselor, like in a counselor client situation, right? A client, I could suggest to a client journaling, or I could suggest to a client maybe poetry, expressive ways of getting through those tough situations or through those tough moments that you may experience.
I
Yeah, I
love
love
that.
that. You definitely threw me for a loop with the poetry. I would not have guessed that, but I love it. I think for me, one of the interventions that we learned this semester that I really like for this situation we're talking about is um, like identifying what we can control and what we can't. And like how we like drew the circle, and then inside the
Mhm.
circle is what we can control, and on the outside is what we can't. And I think the main thing that is usually identified in that scenario is I cannot control other people. I cannot control how people approach me, view me, interact with me. However, I can choose how I respond in the moment. I can choose how I will cope and heal past the experience. I can choose how, like, I just take care of myself in general. So I think that's one that I really like. I'm also a little worried that it may feel invalidating
Mm.
in a way. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I wouldn't want it to come off as invalidating your experience or your feelings. But I think with the world that we live in and with the whole like power chain and the hierarchy that
Mm.
society upholds, it's just like you have to kind of prepare minds, kind of like having the talks with your child. Like you have to prepare for reality versus, in a perfect world, this can exist.
Yeah.
However, this is the world that we live in. So I think it would be hard navigating and finding that balance of like validating feelings and being real about the situation and the world that we're in.
I just
Um,
want to point out one more self
mhm.
care tip. I think a lot of people use Sims. Video games, escaping reality, making your own reality like maybe better for somebody in a situation. Um,
Yeah,
I think Sims would be a good option for kids, teens, adults. Yeah, I think
yeah.
that's
Or like the what we learned in theories, the sandbox intervention
Oh, yeah.
mm,
in theories. I don't remember the specific theoretical approach, but one of the interventions was like a sandbox and you have like a little shovel,
mm,
seashells, like maybe a mom, a dad or whatever, and like you let the child or the client place things as they are. So they may put themselves on this end, the parents on the other end. They may, and you just kind of like talk through the placement of things. I think that would be a really good intervention too. Jose, what about you? Your coping skills and or self-care activities as a counselor?
This is for my counselors out there. Hey, I'm coming for y'all. I
Oh,
think, right, be scared. I think that it's incredibly important when discussing a topic as, as nuanced and as I want to use the word heavy, not because it's something that we shouldn't carry with us, but it's just there's a lot there and we should approach it with a lot of care. When discussing something like racism, colorism, all these isms,
mhm,
I think it's important to remind people who have benefited from some of the privileges, like, being light skinned, being white, to remind themselves that a person who is truly bad would not care this much to find and seek out resources to, improve their anti-racist rhetoric, to improve their cultural humility. I think when people first encounter critical race theory and discussions on anti-racism, especially through a white lens, they might feel a bit attacked or they might feel defensive. And it's important to recognize that while there's this sense maybe of helplessness, like I am benefiting from all these things I had no hand in making, but it's also a matter of I am benefiting from these things that I am able to deconstruct in my own ways, to challenge in my own ways, to use my privileges in ways that others might not be able to, and to find the value in wanting to do that, to not beat yourself up so much. Like, yes, acknowledge that I have gained, certain privileges from being of a lighter skin tone, but that doesn't make me a bad person. That makes me somebody who has experienced privilege and now has the power to do more because I have these privileges. I think I'm a very like words of affirmation person. I love to think.
mm.
So I guess that's my self-care. Like remind yourself somebody who is truly like racist, truly like, dense and not wanting to receive this new knowledge close to it, they would not be seeking out the resources. They would not be considering these things. Remind yourself of these things. Remind yourself to give yourself grace. To if you're going to practice these things, practice makes perfect. Nobody's going to execute these ideas, this knowledge. They're not going to retain it perfectly on the first go. It's a matter of making that commitment to yourself, to your clients, and to the world, because we all deserve a little bit kinder, a little bit kind of a world. Kumbaya. So,
No, that's right. Hannah, what about you with your self-care activities as a counselor, or just coping skills that you've used throughout dealing with your experiences of racism?
Yeah. I believe so strongly in the power of community and interconnectedness. And so during moments where I'm at my lowest or I've experienced discrimination, and it hurts, it does hurt. Knowing that I have folks to turn to, that even if they don't fully understand my lived experience, they can sit with me in those emotions and they can listen to me and they can offer just their presence and their care and their support. And, you know, for me, a great way to kind of decompress and like reconnect with others, because I feel like a lot of times I have this natural tendency where I want to like close in on myself. I want to isolate myself. And so I recognize those are the moments where I need to lean on my community the most. So while I definitely value community, it doesn't always come naturally for me. And it's something that I have to work at. But I think self-care often is something that we have to work at, or at least remind ourselves that we need repeatedly, especially in the fast-paced society we live in. So for me, a great way to kind of ground myself, reconnect with my friends, connect with my community, recognize I'm not alone, is some of my friends and I will do like these craft nights. A lot of my friends live in different parts of the country, different parts of the world, but it is really gratifying to be able to connect with them and make something with my hands and focus on creating without the pressure to make something that looks perfect or good, because that's also like going against capitalism and this idea that everything we create has to be perfect and good. Just focusing on like reconnecting with that human urge to just create something. That is something for me as an artist, as a crafter, that I really, really love to do. Community and creation.
I love that. I feel like you just said a whole mouthful. I feel like every sentence I was just like, yep, yep.
Oh, thank you.
I love that though. All right, JRob, self-care as a counselor, and what worked for you when trying to heal through the experienced racism?
Well, it's kind of tough to go after Hannah, and she just said everything, and I'm like, yeah, that is real life, because with me, community is key, in seeking that support, and like you said, support looks different, uh, depending on what you need in a particular moment, so sometimes I can be looking for validation. Sometimes I can just be looking for you to listen. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'm looking for you to tell me, okay, what did I do wrong, or am I wrong? Am I looking at this wrong? So, sometimes I'm looking for that correction. But yeah, that support is the everything for me, and my friends, my family. Um, that's how I get back to um, being the optimal JRob that I need to be in most cases. And like I said, yeah, it's going to look different uh, all of the time. And also it depends on who I go to, what I'm looking for. Uh, Sometimes I don't need advice from certain folks in my circle because they're great listeners. I need to get this off my chest. These feelings that have been bottled up from this incident. I need you to listen, and you're a great listener. And then there's those in my circle, in my community, my family and friend circle is, hey, you know me so well. Am I looking at this wrong?
Right.
Maybe it could be me. Maybe I'm
Am I the
reaching.
problem?
Yeah. So yeah, like that support is very important from my community and in my community. And yeah, other than that, I'm a big music guy. I don't write music anymore. You know, back in my youthful days,
Here we go.
but not anymore. But yeah, I'm a big, I play guitar, so if I can sit and play my guitar and I'm that's some good self-care to to me. I can escape whatever is on my mind.
Yeah.
So either that's
So
by
when you gonna
playing,
teach us how to play the guitar?
huh?
Please.
When you gonna teach us?
Oh, whenever.
I need lessons.
Let me get on Facebook Marketplace and find me a little guitar.
Oh,
No, I'm serious.
goodness.
You laughing,
As
but
a matter
I'm
of
really
fact,
so serious. Like I want to
I
do
know.
something like that.
Ooh, he's breaking it out.
Okay.
Not gonna disappoint.
Hey.
Aww. I know that's right. I'm
Play
gonna
us
go
a
on Facebook
chord.
Marketplace, find one just
Huh?
like it. That's that country boy guitar.
No, I ain't gonna play nothing right now.
No.
Maybe for the finale when we signing off.
Ooh, yeah. Give us an outro.
Okay, so we're gonna take another little ad break, and Derrick is gonna share with you guys a mental health resource.
All right, so this is a mental resource for Black men specifically. It's called blackmenheal.org. It's for individual therapy. And there's 3 goals that they have is to eliminate costs, create and promote cultural competency, and eliminate stigma. And you get 8 free sessions. Woo! And they range from $75 to $200 per session. Woo! Let's go. Yeah.
I'm like, yes, I love that resource. I think when I came across it, I was just surprised that they interact with Black men globally. It's not just in one state or in one area, and they offer telehealth for multiple states. And I just think that's a really good resource, especially for a community, primarily Black men who are
In
like
Pennsylvania, New Jersey,
I think it was like New York,
New York, Maryland, DC,
DC.
and GA. Yeah. But yeah,
Yep,
that's
and I like that.
an important resource because again, a lot of Black men aren't taught to express themselves. We're taught to bottle our emotions. Like my father taught
Mhm.
me to push everything down, suck it up, get over it, and then his father taught him the same thing. So that generational stigma is passed down from generation to generation. So I think it's important for us as Black men, and any Black men that are listening to this podcast, to be able to express yourself, know how to cope, have that emotional regulation. All those types of things are important, to grow and better yourself and build your
Most
Second
relationship.
that message.
definitely. Okay, so to build off of the previous discussion of self-care, um, in what ways, I want to pick everyone's brain, in what ways would you assist clients in working through the moments? And what I mean by the moments are like, let's say you have a client who shares similar experiences with racism as you did. In what ways would you assist the client? And we can go, Jose.
Of course. Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. I'm a talker. So I feel like just on initial reaction, I would want to offer an apology. And I know that we're often advised to not go that route because I feel like it could come off like pity or like
Yeah.
you don't want to apologize to your client and all these different things. But I would follow that apology up, especially if it's something where it's an experience I had as well. I would let them know this isn't a pity apology. This is like an empathy one where like I was there, and I would use, of course I would use self-disclosure within reason. And I would let them know like you're not alone in this, and whatever feelings you are feeling about it, whether it be embarrassment, anger, defeat, it's all very dehumanizing, and I'm so sorry that you went through this experience, but I want you to know that all of those feelings are real. You don't need me to tell you that you're feeling that right now. You're not alone in this. We can talk about this as much or as little as you want. And I would just try my best to be as human and as present as I can for them. I don't know how that speaks about my theory. I haven't chosen one yet, but yeah, I think that's what I would do.
Okay, what about you, Hannah?
I think for me, a lot of it is going to be helping folks. I know for me, internalized racism has been a huge obstacle in my life. And being biracial, dealing with racism within the family, dealing with assumptions that are made about you and your potential from family members is something that I've experienced, and that has been, you know, it's been really isolating. And so helping my client recognize who their support system is. Okay, so maybe the people in your life that ideally you should be able to talk to, you should be able to talk to your family. Maybe they're not there, and maybe you don't even trust your own mind to tell you the truth about yourself because you've internalized so many horrible things about what it means to be Black, or what it means to be Latina, or what it means to be Asian, like any race. We all have these internalized racist ideas. And so I think working with them to kind of deconstruct what they have been taught to believe and to build new narratives is going to be really important in my work. Sorry, everything froze for a second on my end. But being able to recognize, like, okay, how can we construct new narratives? How can we seek out role models with ways of being that are affirming for you? If you're not getting that from your family, if you're not getting that, can we follow new people on social media? Something as simple as that. Can we surround ourselves with images of people who look like us in some way? The media that we consume, like making conscious efforts towards a more affirming existence, I think, is something that I'm interested in, and building community that is affirming, whether that's friends, found family, mentors, all sorts of connections. I think that can be really helpful.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you made a good point with even like following new people on social media or trying to adjust your feed to where you're seeing influences or influencers who look like you and are possibly pursuing something that you're interested in. So I think that was a really neat idea. I think for me, especially because I'm school counseling focused, my mind goes to dealing with a teenager who feels like they don't belong somewhere or they don't know where they fit in. And I think, or even if I was dealing with a student who is experiencing racism, I imagine the hesitant, like the being hesitant to speak or to talk, especially if there's no rapport established previously. And I would really like to explore or just like whatever their preferred method is. Like if I know this is the artistic student, okay, like draw me a picture, like, and maybe even be more specific with details. Okay, so draw me a face figure, and in the space where the brain is, tell me what's going on up there for you. And that could be a picture, it could be words or whatever. And then or just like music. I know for me, music is a big one. Like I kid you not, y'all can give me any situation, any scenario. I'm gonna find a song that talk about it. And that's just like that's a big part of how I communicate. So that's definitely my favorite one. But definitely exploring like the expressive arts kind of side, and like, maybe it's a book, maybe it's a poem, things like that. Maybe they want to write me a song like JRob.
Hey.
But yeah, that would be it for me. So I'm gonna pass it to JRob.
Um, I think in the space that I would love to work in, so many times we like to sweep it under the rug or say, oh yeah, that doesn't exist here. We're merit based. That does not exist. Uh, so if I were to be dealing with a client, I would definitely I would want to start with validation, like, yes, this is what is going on. Of course, they're going to tell you try harder, or maybe it's something you did, or is your. They're going to tell you it's your fault. Just that's how this organization works. But yeah, definitely that validation, and like Jose said, that tidbit of self disclosure, just to uh, allow them to understand, like, okay, well, you definitely understand me. You have an understanding,
Right.
and when a client knows that you fully understand them, it strengthens that therapeutic relationship so much when it's like, oh no, you get me. You
Yeah.
are me. But yes, you have to be very tasteful with your disclosures. But
Right. Not too much, not too little. But
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that'll
of course.
definitely help the rapport building as well.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes clients just like to, I think as a counselor, you show up in a way that like you want to remain authentic. And I think a little
Very much
self-disclosure
so.
can help you do that. Because if you show up too professional or too superior, or like I'm the adult, especially for me, like I'm the adult, you're the child, like,
Yeah.
it'll be hard to build that. So
Therapeutic
yeah, I
bond.
definitely agree with that. Don't you, Derrick?
So I would say that maybe even sitting in silence after they disclose what happened in the situation is important. Not just like jumping into okay, to the next thing that you're gonna say to them. Give them that time to kind of sit in that that moment that they just expressed to you, and then possibly go into the validation aspect of it, and then dig a little deeper into what was that experience like for you, and then go further into it like that. I feel like, and then maybe as an activity, depending on their interests, find out their interests, and then you can do something related to that interest to cope with that experience that they may have had, that racist experience that they had. So I think that's a good idea. That's what I would do for a
Most
client.
definitely. Sitting in the silence. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do
Yeah.
as the person who has experienced and is feeling all the things. As a counselor, we have it easy. Like it's almost like an honor to be able to sit there, but like sometimes as a person, you can empathize and you can kind of feel, especially if you share some of the same experience. And in some ways, sitting in that silence, maybe you reliving it as the professional that has supposed to been healed from it. Um, but
But I think
yeah,
that can be also an issue too. Sometimes, like if you end up doing that and you sit in too much silence and you're reviewing and you're like reminiscing on your experiences because this person's experience relates to your experience, that can be sometimes it kind of throw you off. It can kind of throw you off if you don't, you know, stay in that present.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, choke. Yeah, yeah.
I think in those moments, especially if it could be a triggering topic for you, it could just be beneficial to like thought tracking and making sure
Yeah.
that you as the counselor are like knowing at least where you're going to go next, or like how, like what are next steps and things like that. But
But that
yeah, I
sounds
like that.
also to, you know, also be able to transition into that as well. So it's okay to be scared.
Hmm. Yeah, most definitely. It's a part of the journey. I think like experiences, whether it's like grief, trauma, anything like that, I feel like once you experience it, you kind of have a relationship with it now. And so
Yeah.
as time goes on, you just learn how to better like manage those emotions that come up when you think about it. Or you may be able to compartmentalize a little bit better and be like, you know, hey, I'm at work. I can't have these emotions right now, but when I get home, we'll unpack. Like, and be able
Mm.
to like navigate that more as time goes on.
I think
But
there is something to be said too, though, about, you know, within reason, obviously, like we need to be able to not allow, we need to be in control of ourselves enough that
Mm.
we are not projecting
Right.
our own trauma onto the client. But at the same time, I know in my own personal therapy sessions, there have been times where I'm having a really emotional moment and I'm crying, and I look up and I see that my therapist is wiping away tears too. And there is something so affirming and humanizing about recognizing that we are both
Yeah.
here, we're real, we're humans, and we're feeling this together. To know that your counselor is feeling it with you, I think that that also can build rapport because that is authentic.
Yeah.
So,
I agree with that.
yeah, we have to be mindful, but we
We're
also,
not robots in counseling. Like,
right,
yeah, feelings. We
right,
have emotions.
yeah.
mm-mm-mm. Okay, so now I know we talked a little bit about interventions and as clients, but now I want to transition into the interventions that Jose and Hannah had prepared.
Yeah. I'll start us off because I kind of went into the individual level interventions. I think primarily what I was interested in, and I might be a bit biased because these are the types of theories that I'm the most interested in. Um, but I think that a great way that we can incorporate anti-racist values and beliefs into our work with our clients is by adopting anti-racist theories as part of our theoretical toolkit. So, for example, some of these include relational cultural theory, critical race theory, which we talked about earlier, intersectionality theory, Kimberly Crenshaw. That is so important. Being able to understand the different identities that we all hold and how the interactions between those different identities as a Black woman, as a biracial person, as, a queer Latina man, as, all of these different identities, these intersections matter and they impact the way that we exist throughout the world. And being able to recognize a client's cultural identity in its entirety is so important to our work as counselors. We don't want to leave things out. Liberation psychology, I love that because it recognizes the importance of ancestral knowledge and taps into that and allows clients to reconnect with cultural messages that are strengthening and affirming and that maybe they've been disconnected from because of colonialism and imperialism. So that is really helpful as well. Um, and, I think that what is so nice about having awareness of these types of theories is that you don't have to adopt it in its entirety. You can use an integrated approach where you incorporate aspects of it, or it informs the way that you perhaps conceptualize your client's life and their existence. And um, recognizing the importance of community, of cultural knowledge, of different ways of being. These things can really strengthen your counseling approach. And yeah, I just think that this is a really useful tool, and it helps people to kind of reclaim their histories and also to resist socio-political structures, because it gives you a framework through which you can inform your clients on how to become more involved in anti-racism in their own lives, how they can start to have conversations with people that they encounter who perhaps are oppressing them. Maybe they can start to make a difference in their communities because, you know, you're informing them on the ways that you've been informed as well. So kind of passing on this knowledge. And um, one last thing I wanted to talk about is that something that is common throughout the theories that I discussed is that there is a sort of emphasis on relationships in the counseling space as being collaborative and as being focused on equity, where the counselor is not above the client, but they're on the same footing. And so I think that that's also something we need to recognize, because there's going to be power differentials, and you know, the culture comes into the room with us, like Dr. Coakley always says, like race is in the room with us, gender is in the room with us, all of these dynamics are there. So being able to identify them and being able to kind of reconstruct the space so that you're using your privilege, if you're the privileged counselor, to help your client, and that you're on equal footing and you're recognizing these differences. Yeah, I think that that's really important. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to share, Jose. Oh, actually, I lied. One more thing. Counseling, and this is something that we learned a lot about in theories, but counseling historically has been very white, very Eurocentric. And another thing that these theories bring to the table is they offer us new ways of conceptualizing what it means to have mental wellness, what it means to be mentally ill. You know, a de-emphasis on pathologizing responses to things like racism is important. And these theories give us a framework to do that, so that we are not re-traumatizing our clients, that we are exposing them to additional discrimination within this space where they're coming to heal. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say on that. But I wonder if you have anything to share about individual interventions, Jose.
No, yeah, I think you put that beautifully. I could go into the group level now, and if whenever
Sure.
I'm done, you could feel free to add anything you'd like before I go
Yeah.
into institutional.
Mhm.
Okay, awesome. So for group level, I think it's really important. You know, I love a union. I love a union. But not so much a union, but like making these groups within your own practice, whether it be group therapy for individuals who may be more marginalized and have not as much access to, whether it be like financially therapy or all these different things, like having options at your practice to make sure you are considering accessibility, the topics even being discussed, and in those topics, like don't just do blanket anti-racism. Don't be scared to explore topics like critical race theory, critical gender, like be critical. One thing about this, be critical. If you're going to be doing these groups, make sure that they are being led by professionals, by clinicians who are well versed in this, if not trained in this. Make sure that they are being financially compensated in a way that respects them, their knowledge that they're providing you. Don't just do the bare minimum for them. They're providing a resource, an invaluable one at that, and they should be compensated accordingly. And make sure that if these groups are being held, that they're not just being dumped on a counselor of color because, oh, well, the color of their skin qualifies them. Be mindful about how that's being received by the person you're asking. You have to consider all of these things. They're very important. Racial identity, ethnic identity. You don't we know we learn in school about how we don't want our clients to educate us on their racism. If we as professionals and professionals in training are hoping to make these groups where we're able to learn off of one another, let's make sure we hold those same standards. Let's make sure that we're practicing what we preach. And if you do consider like the accessibility of like, oh, well, it costs money to find a professional. Look into books. Look into a sort of like reading club that you can do that reads from publishers who are knowledgeable on this. And if you can, make steps in that decision to do a little bit more social justice and advocacy. Don't order from Amazon, order from the publisher if you can. There is so much that you can do everywhere in every decision. It's just a matter of sitting with the thought because you can make the idea your own. You just need the goal in mind. But Hannah, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think definitely groups are a great accessible way to make anti-racist teachings available to clients, to fellow clinicians. I agree with the importance of making sure that we're paying the professionals who are educating us. We don't want to replicate the existing systems of oppression that devalue the labor of people of color. So being mindful of that. And I think, joining or creating your own organizations that prioritize anti-racism within the counseling field, within your community. What sort of grassroots things can we get into? How can we identify needs within our community through our work with clients, and then try to work towards meeting those needs? Organizations can be a great way to achieve those goals. Let's see. They also said, like, anti-racism is more than just like, feet on the ground, like, picketing in the streets. Like it's having conversations with your loved ones. It's having conversations with your coworkers. Like Rob said, it's so important to be cognizant of the fact that sometimes we are the problem. So being able to sit with that, being able to practice mindfulness, consciousness building, uh, recognizing the need to develop your own racial identity if you're not fully secure in that yet. These are all important steps that we can take, and they can happen individually, but they can also happen in group settings where you're working with other people to kind of achieve this goal.
Yes, very well put, Hannah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What I'm about to say goes out to the APA specifically, and CACREP, you will be dealt with. I think it's important when considering how institutional level interventions can be handled. What are the institutions doing on their behalf to practice what they preach instead of asking the professionals, the counselors in training, do your best? Institutions as a conglomerate, as a corporation, as a group, whatever they want to be seen as, often have the most power legislatively. Let's talk about that. If we are expecting our counselors in training, our future counselors, to be anti-racist, to talk about cultural humility, to be prepared in the counseling session so that they don't get their licenses revoked, let's prepare them before they even apply. Let's discuss these expectations in the application process of these programs. Let's talk about how race will always be in the room whenever you're in this program. You can't wait till your practicum and find your dream client or your nightmare client and just hope you will navigate it well. That is doing harm, and that goes against the very boards and ethics that they so claim to want us to embody. Practice what you preach. The APA, I'm talking to you right now. Why is the only piece of anti-racism a statement in support of the Black Lives Matter movement? It's giving posturing. Why is that the only piece on your website? CACREP, why are you telling us, or institutions for that matter, programs that they need to have all of these different qualifications as if institutions, especially in rural areas, are just going to dump these diversity, these consideration, the cultural humility requirements on professors of color, who then have to figure out how to navigate these conversations in a predominantly white field where they can't necessarily talk about it in the way that it's meant to be talked to, that it should be talked about, because they have to worry about student surveys, they have to worry about student perception, they have to worry about a myriad of things, and it's just being dumped on them because they want to keep their job. But
Mhm.
but F us, right? I'm wrong for saying that, right? No, y'all need to do better. Let's talk about that. Let's see if I missed anything. The school counselors, y'all's code of ethics, y'all have something about anti-racism. I respect that. Let's take a note out of their book. Let's learn from the teachers. Let's sit with that food for thought. I'm
I
done.
think in a way maybe they like it may have been more of a requirement or more needed because of like school systems. Everything shows up, like it discusses bullying and all the things that you guys don't necessarily have to address in clinical. um
Adults can be bullies. Let's talk about it. No, let's say that
they
for another
can,
episode.
but what I'm
Yeah.
saying is,
And they
it's
be
more
bullying the
likely to show
students.
up in a school system, so it's mandatory to go ahead and address bullying because it's just that big of a thing now, especially with the internet and social media. You can be getting bullied online and they bring it into the school or vice versa.
And make no
Um,
mistake, probably a lot of that is because of legal repercussions related
Mhm.
to
right.
that.
And that's
And
see,
make no
you
mistake either.
always I be trying to say what you say, Hannah. Like I be trying, but then you just come behind, you just say it so beautifully.
Give
Love it.
yourself some credit.
Make no
That's what they
So,
mistake
care
either.
about.
Hold on, I'm not
They
done.
care about the
oh
legality.
my God.
They care about
He's
the
still on his
legality
soapbox. Let him
Yeah,
go.
I am.
Just saying,
Hello.
they care about the legality aspect of it. They don't really care about, the
Oh,
actual
they
cause.
don't. But everything is
Yeah.
business. It's a
Mhm.
Yeah.
business.
Make no mistake, the school counselors are not off the hook too. We could always be better. I just wanted
Oh,
to
for
say
sure.
that.
For
I
sure.
didn't want to give them their flowers and let them go out hooty tooty, whatever whatever Anna said earlier. The hotty toddy. No. No, we could all always be better. I'm done now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of
Yeah,
course, this is a lifelong learning
That
journey.
right,
part.
right. I
Okay,
think
so oh, go ahead.
I was going
Go
to
ahead.
say real quick, I think something that I recognize is that, within the ACA code of ethics, there's a lot of talk about we don't discriminate based on this. We don't discriminate based on this. But there is so little research oftentimes to even back up our understanding of certain communities. There's not enough research on trans communities, on disabled communities, on, every time I do a research project and I'm looking into these communities, I'm recognizing not enough people are researching these populations. And if they are, they're certainly not doing it in a way that is culturally sensitive, that recognizes the proper language that we need to be using, that humanizes these populations either, and so it's it's frustrating to see that they're recognizing there is a need for us to not discriminate against X group, Y group, and Z group. But where's the research? Where's the
Mm.
information?
Mm.
Where is the support and the training to prepare us to interact with these populations, to support these populations, to help them empower themselves as they go throughout life? We are not given the tools. We are given one semester of diversity, and it's not
Mm.
enough. It's not
Mm.
Mhm.
enough. So
Be
we
going hard.
need we need to be willing to continue to do this work on our own. It's not a suggestion, it is necessary. Otherwise, we will be harming our clients. We will.
And you will be judged.
And you will be judged. You will be dealt with.
And you
You
will
will
be
be
dealt
dealt
with.
with.
And you will be dealt with.
Mhm.
No, I think you said that like perfectly, like just perfect. A lot of the research, the history in the profession is based on white people for white people, as we talked about like in class and stuff with like the DSM being, you know, for white people.
Mhm.
And yet you're using the same manual to diagnose people of color and multicultural individuals. And it's just like, how do you like, and of course, people of color who are in the profession have the competence to be able to say, okay, I know that this is based off research for people who don't look like us. So I will use it as maybe like uh, what word am I looking for? Maybe like a foundation or a starting point. But however, I'm not gonna solely base what you're telling me as a client, and I'm gonna look up what it's telling me your diagnosis is type of thing. Like I'm gonna view it and consider it, but not just let this be my only source for diagnosing and stuff like that. Um,
That's a great point.
JRob, JRob, we're gonna go with your resource that you have to share with the audience.
All right. Yeah, this ad is provided to you by the American Counseling Association. The ACA has given us an anti-racism toolkit, just with some tips, tricks, and things of that nature to for counselors and uh, counselors in training to either get started or continue their anti-racist journey. So some of the things that the ACA has provided in this toolkit, some of the tips and tricks, they say establish reflective practices to investigate racial biases. We should also encourage anti-racist behavior in our homes, communities, and workplaces.
Sound good?
We should be reading more anti-racist literature, and they do provide a book list. And they also say incorporate anti-racist literature into book clubs, and we've all been a part of book clubs, and I think that would be very beneficial. We should also actively participate in, donate to, and follow organizations that support minoritized communities. Uh, we should, oopsie doodle, and we should be open and educated. We should be open and educated to discuss trauma that goes on in minoritized communities. And we should also raise our awareness and our clients' awareness about micro triggers and microaggressions. Again, these are just some of the tips and tricks provided by the American Counseling Association in their anti-racism toolkit, because anti-racism is an action and not a state of being.
Ooh, I like that.
Period. Little razzle dazzle at the end. Okay, y'all. So our last transition and segment for the night. I kind of just want to pick everyone's brain and explore current events as it applies to racism and discrimination. And a few things that come to mind is like the DEI initiatives that were rescinded in the beginning of the year. Also, the deportation and the collecting of immigrants, some of them being citizens of America, but because they look a certain way, they're getting taken from homes, things like that. I know for me, when the DEI like got taken away, like I don't know, it's just like the first. I'm not trying to be funny, y'all. Like the Trump got in the office like what, like the 20th or something, like of January. And he didn't put the pen down till yesterday. Like the pen has been in his hand and he's been signing stuff. And it's just like, bro, put the pen down, please. Like, please. Because it's like at this point, like the way things went into place so fast after the inauguration, you can tell it was premeditated, planned, strategized, and things like that. And it's just, it makes you wonder, like, what's really going on? Like,
and they're saying we can't have free healthcare. Oh,
Oh, we're sending Katy Perry into space. Okay.
And
Yeah.
that's like the lack of stories and news. Like it's
Oh,
almost as if like people are like, why are y'all scared to report on these things? Like that's how you know there's just such a bigger picture that like we don't even know about.
yeah.
Right.
News is definitely biased. It's censored. It's
Hmm.
fabricated, and all the above.
And that's why they don't like TikTok, because it's always one person who get a video pushed out and it go viral.
Hmm.
Um, and also like I think I saw something where it was a mom, she was a wife, and she was like she looked like a part of the Latine, like Hispanic community, and she pretty much her husband had been taken away and sent somewhere. And he was a US citizen. Um, he was wrongfully taken, and like just to see like her tears and her emotions and just like it was just like I kind of put myself in their position. Like what if I was a member of this family? What if I was the child? Like, and it really just makes you think of the significance of like these things that are going on. Like I could
Right.
not imagine me like we all just ate dinner, we're in the living room watching a little TV, like kids about to go get in the tub, like, and all of a sudden like somebody kicking down the door and I'm getting taken out in front of my kids, in front of my wife, and then the traumatizing experience that the kids had from their point of view because they don't understand what's going on, and then the wife now turning into a single parent until his return, not knowing if he'll return. Like it just, I don't know, like it took my mind deep. It did, I'm not gonna lie. um but we can start with Derrick if there's any like current events or things that are going on. Also, if
Um,
y'all want, y'all can mention any movements or anything that y'all have seen as far as other social justice advocacy.
Events currently going on right now is Carmelo Anthony and that situation. If you've heard of it, has anybody heard of it? The Carmelo Anthony situation? Okay.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm not aware. I would love for you to share.
So, I'm not gonna. Well, I can't. The story's kind of long, but basically,
Sure.
it's a self-defense case with a black young man and a white young man who were at a. I think it was a track. It was at a track meet, and Austin. The person's name is Austin. What's it? Metcalf. What is it?
Yeah,
Y'all remember?
Metcalf.
Austin Metcalf.
Metcalf.
Metcalf. Yeah, Austin Metcalf and Carmelo Anthony. Those are the names. Basically, what happened was, what's his name? Brain.
Austin.
Austin. Austin went to the tent. Austin went to the tent that Carmelo Anthony was at a school event for a track meet. He
And his
told
twin
him,
brother.
huh?
He said,
Huh?
and his twin brother.
Yeah, and his twin brother, right? Yeah, his twin brother, and both of them were both approached Carmelo, and they were telling him to get up. They were basically saying that he needs to leave, and the coach of the school had already told Carmelo Anthony that he can stay there. He then tries to physically, Calvin, or what's his name? Damn, Austin tries to remove Carmelo Anthony physically, right? And he gave him a verbal warning beforehand and said, "Hey, you're gonna, you're gonna find out if you touch me, right?" So he ends up yoking him up in a way, like holding him up
Yeah.
by his shirt. And so then Carmelo Anthony is now in self-defense mode. So he has a knife. It's a pocket knife, and it was for like track shoes that it was for. And he ends up stabbing him one time in the chest. He then goes to the police and then tells them, what happened and that he had did it. And so now on social media and Twitter, well, X, Elon. Elon, his little thing. Oh God.
It'd be your own people. I can't believe
Oh,
he's from Africa.
I hate that man so much. He's from South Africa. Um, he's not our people.
Be your own people.
No,
We don't
no,
claim him.
absolutely not.
He doesn't
But
identify.
he doesn't identify. Okay, yeah, so he's still not black. But at the end of the day, basically what happened is Twitter is basically spinning around and saying that Carmelo Anthony is a murderer, but this is a self-defense case, and it
Well,
turns out he had a bail of $1 million, right? He had a bail of $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
That was reduced by a black judge to 25
$250,000.
$250,000 in bail. That was reduced, and they only had to pay like, I guess, 25 of that. So now he's free, and now everybody's like, oh, we should kill him. Like, there's literally grown ass adults that are saying to kill this young man. Like, and they adultified him. They were trying to say that he was a gangster. He has a 3.7 GPA. Again, the adultification of black men in general is no, not black men, black kids in general. That happened. The pictures they used of Austin versus the pictures they used of Carmelo. They had pictures of him like holding up guns, and but they didn't show the pictures of Austin also holding up guns. Regardless if it was hunting or not, you still it probably wasn't even hunting, but that's beside the point. You still holding up guns, and you have one image that you're trying to build and a narrative that you're trying to build for this black young man versus this white guy. And also the twin brother himself said that he was the aggressor. So yeah, there's that.
That makes me think of Kyle Rittenhouse. And
across state lines.
Yeah, right. And how he was let off and celebrated as almost this hero for stopping savages from rioting, and the way that his childhood innocence was so important to preserve. And why is that? What's the difference? You know, he was not being attacked, but yet he acted in self-defense as well. So it's interesting. Self-defense without being attacked.
And then go across to hunt people down. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
JRob, you have anything to add?
No. Yeah, I've been following that story as well, and yeah, the online rhetoric is absolutely disgusting. And you like the Kyle Rittenhouse situation, like you're seeing that come back up. You're seeing the George Zimmerman stuff come back up.
Right.
And
it too.
Yeah, it's really disgusting out here. How I'm gonna assume a lot of these are adults on the internet. Maybe they're not. I don't know. But yeah, and a lot of people have been threatening the judge, like, oh, she only lowered the bail because she's black and he's black. If that was two white people, oh, y'all would be looting stores, yada yada yada. I'm like, all right, bro, chill out. You ain't talking about. But yeah, that's
if
it's the what if, hey. But yeah, that's what I've been following pretty close. So I do want to see how it pans out. There was a report that there's some surveillance camera footage. I don't know how true that is, but if there is some surveillance camera footage, I figured it would have been out a long time ago. if it showed anything otherwise than what has been stated. But I'm curious to know. But yeah, I'm definitely following that and seeing how these race relations pan out.
Most definitely. I'm kind of interested now that y'all introduced me to that.
I need to do more research on that.
Jose, what about you? You mighty quiet.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Anyways. Oh, okay.
You love to have the last word.
I do. I sure do.
Speak.
On a lighter note, okay. Uh, there have been mega marches, happening in Dallas and California by Hispanic people in response to the ICE raids imposed by Trump. He's not coming to save us. Don't come save us, Donald Trump. We do not want you. And Elon Musk, you will be dealt with. Mega marches, we love to see it. I forget the exact road, but I want to say it was like one of the interstates or highways. Thousands of people showed up, showed out. I know that there was controversy surrounding the fact that at some of the marches, people decided to only hold Mexican flags. But if you ask me, it's a matter, not just Mexican, of course, like Latin American flags. And people were, I guess, bothered by the fact that there were no American flags. But whenever the country that you are residing in is, has all these systems that actively work against you or designed to work against you, can you really blame them? Food for thought.
Well,
Another thing too, I'm not sure if y'all have been keeping up with this or seeing this, but Hispanic people have been racially profiled and been sent to Salvadorian prison camps where just because that they have a tattoo, I know there's a case where a Hispanic man had an autism awareness tattoo, and simply because of that, he was detained, found guilty over nothing, and sent to a Salvadorian prison camp where his, I want to say, I'm not sure if it's the Supreme Court. I want to say it might be ordered it to be unconstitutional, and the Trump administration is failing to comply to bring him back. It really makes you wonder what is going on in those camps. Why are we not really hearing back from these people? More food for thought. It's very disheartening. Um, I would also like to share a resource. It's called Juntos Seguros. It's JUNTOS No, it's not SU. My bad. SEGUROS. Juntoseguros.com. It is a website that you can go on and report any ICE sightings. They do ask that you provide photographic evidence so people don't flood it with false reports and fear mongering. But it's a very useful website. People use it every single day. And it's a small way that even you, whoever wants to listen to this podcast, can contribute and participate in activism. But yes.
I love that.
Me too. Um, Especially because I feel like that's the beauty of like community, and I feel like I've always believed that together we can literally do so much, but because of being oppressed in a country and because of being told you're less than and you can't do this and you're dumb, you're this, you're that, like being told that you're not capable of anything, when in reality if we came together for a shared purpose and for the same goal, the way things would rock in our favor, especially like I just truly believe in that. And I think that website is just a piece of testament to just that whole statement, because the way that we can share something and a stranger who, we've never even met, but we're able to help them out through a shared resource that we both use. That is just so cool to me.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody got anything else?
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
no, maybe. So all hearts and mind clear?
I just want to say, hey, I appreciate everybody.
I do. Big shout out to Dr. Coakley. As you can tell, we've learned a lot from you, boo girl. And we learning to call a thing.
We
And
are.
we getting there. We're going on our journeys and we're exploring and we're sitting with the thing and all of that. So thank you and we appreciate you. Is that it?
I think that's it.
All right, catch us on the next episode.
Because I don't know about y'all, but it's past my bedtime.
Mhm.
Bye.
See ya. Wish I could be